in your opinion, what would somebody have to do to deserve being brutally murdered, cut up maybe even before they were dead, and dumped in a river to rot forever? Because that's what happened to this girl, this young mother, Nichole Alloway. She was brutally murdered, cut up, maybe even before she was dead, taken to another location. They tied a boulder to her, and they dumped her in the river to rot. And I'm sure that the people who dumped her there never wanted her to be found. The two monsters that did this to her should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. And really, they should already have been punished to the full extent of the law. But for some reason, the police don't really much feel like prosecuting them. And I'm not really sure why, but we do have a few reasons. And I really want you guys to understand that I don't have a personal vendetta against these people. I have no idea who they are. I've never lived in Scioto County. Honestly, I never knew who any of these people were. I never heard their names before January of 2011, and only in connection with Nicole have I heard their names. First of all, after Nicole was found, America's Most Wanted contacted the Scioto County Sheriff's Department. And the first time in the history of the show, and this was told to Denise, Nicole's cousin, first time in the history of the show, law enforcement refused the help of America's Most Wanted. First time in 2 or 3 decades, law enforcement had ever refused their help. You know, it's a pretty fantastic statement. So I did my own checking, and I checked with someone who did work with America's Most Wanted, and yes, it was first time in the history of the show, law enforcement refused help in regard to the murder of Nichole Allaway. Secondly, what about Steve Timberlake? Now, our information says that he arrested her, he took her to the police station, he was going to keep her under arrest, but then he talked to Diane Dill, her grandmother, who said she had nothing to do with Jason Kraft, who's the person that she was arrested with. So he let her go and was supposed to take her to the homeless shelter and put her in the homeless shelter, and she was going to sleep there for the night. Well, he took her to the homeless shelter. He took her out, but he did not sign her out. We don't know where she went, why he did this. We have no idea. If he disputes this claim, and I believe our story is true, why would he not go back to the homeless shelter in the morning and make sure to get her on that bus like he promised her grandmother, Diane Dill? Why would he not go back over to the homeless shelter first thing in the morning and make sure? Because he knows she doesn't have a ride because he arrested her ride. Why wouldn't he go back over and make sure she got to the bus station? Why wouldn't he, if he did go over there and she wasn't there, why wouldn't he check up on her? Wouldn't he be concerned? He knew her story, and still, he didn't follow up. Pretty crappy police work there, especially for a federal agent. I find it inexcusable, frankly. Thirdly, how the heck did Nicole get paired up with Richard Howard? Richie Howard is Essie Breach's brother, and boy, what a winner that one is. He is not good looking. He's as dumb as a box of rocks. He's a drug addict. There's no reason that a young woman, young, beautiful woman like Nicole would be hooking up with him. There's no way. Secondly, all the news stories that you've ever read saying that she was on drugs and doing drugs with Richie Howard, no, those aren't true. None of it's true. In her autopsy, they found absolutely no drugs in her system whatsoever. I don't know who told the newspaper that she was on drugs. It's not true. But honestly, I have no idea who turned him in and said that he was with Nicole. He did not kill her. He did help to cut up her body, but he didn't kill her. They arrested him initially after she was found. They arrested him and charged him with her murder, I think, for like an hour. Then only ended up charging him with abuse of her corpse and for drugs. And the only reason he went to prison was not for Nichole. It was because he violated his parole. So he went back to jail to finish off his sentence. They searched his car at some point when he was still out. They found some blood in his car. He said that Nichole had her period and she had an accident in his car. That's about how much blood was in the car. Now, when she was found, the autopsy revealed she was badly mutilated. There's no way that he did that in that car. There was not nearly enough blood to do that in that car. So I'm just wondering, if you don't find evidence that he did that in the car, and he states his residence is this farm, wouldn't you go out to the farm to see if that's where he did it? Wouldn't you go out to the farm to at least check and see what was going on? Because it was real obvious that she was murdered. On her death certificate, it says undetermined homicidal violence. She was killed somewhere. And if you have Richie and you're able to charge him with abusing her corpse, wouldn't you want to go out to his house and check it out? But they never went out to the property. Not once. At least not on their own. They did go out there a couple months later for an ATV, a stolen ATV. Because the stolen ATV, that was worth more to them. That was worth the effort that they could put forth to go out to that farm and find the ATV, but they couldn't be bothered with Nichole. And you know what? When they went out to that property, they would have seen all the meth-making materials, all the needles. It should have given them probable cause, at least to arrest them on drug-making charges. It didn't. Thing is, if they'd gone in the house, they would have seen all the pills that they were getting from their pill runs to Florida, too. But guess what? They didn't want to go into the house. That'd be my guess. If they didn't want Richard Howard, too, wouldn't they try and find somebody else? There were so many people living out at that house at the time. The murderers, Chris and Essie Breach, were living out at the property at that time. Nobody thought to investigate anything out at the property. Finally, after we brought forth eyewitness testimony, we brought forth more evidence in January of 2011. We weren't sure how to proceed, so we contacted the family before we contacted the police. They said, do not trust the police. So I went to the FBI, who told me it wasn't a federal matter. I went to the U.S. Marshal's office. I went to a whole bunch of places, and it was really, really difficult. But the family did end up calling the police. So the police came out, and it took like 2 months for them to finally show up, but they did come out and they did a search, and I'm going to address the bones now. Bones were found on this property. And at the time when they came out, the owner of the property put them in a box, one of those cardboard file boxes with a whole bunch of other bones that were found on the property. Put them all in a box and tried to give them to Detective Matthew Spencer and the local CSI guy, the one that works for Scioto and several other counties. The CSI guy couldn't identify them as human. We have since identified them as human bones. The second time they came out, she put the box in the area where they were investigating and put a note on the top that they might want to take these. Some of them didn't look like animal bones. She knew that several of them were animal bones, but not all of them. But they refused a second time to take them also. It's very frustrating to know. In fact, it'd be more frustrating to be you guys out in Scioto County and know that you have grossly incompetent people working for you, or people that just are so corrupt that they will do anything to cover up this murder. The barn was never restricted access. The building where she was killed, never any restricted access, never taped off, never roped off, There were never any kind of requests to not go in the barn, not mess with anything, all that. So we let that go for a few months. And in July of 2011, we got a message from Chief Deputy Miller that said that he had spoken with Detective Spencer and Mark Kuhn, who said that there was no evidence in the barn. There's nothing in the barn. There was nothing out there because they just didn't do it. And I mean, I'm guessing is what they're thinking. They didn't do it out there. There's no evidence. There's nothing. We don't need the barn. Tear the barn down. They said, you're more than welcome to tear down the barn. There's no evidence in there. And I'll continue this in the next video.